time we have launched this economics. So
very good.
So we are
Topic is quite
live.
आशीष तुम्हारा ऑडियो ठीक नहीं है.
Ma'am, you can
आशीष
start
ऑडियो
via live.
इंटरनेट में प्रॉब्लम है.
Okay. Now, sir, now?
Yeah, perfect.
I'm audible now?
Yeah. Yes, now you are audible.
Live.
Sir, we are live. Anjali ma'am, you can start now. Ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
So we are live on YouTube now. We begin the session, the inaugural session for today. Hello everyone and good morning, all the participants, our guests, Principal Sir and my fellow colleagues who have joined us today. Thank you all for joining us. I welcome you to the commencement of this 2-week refresher course, which is online, organized by Department of Economics in collaboration with Teacher and Learning Center of Ramanujan College, University of Delhi, and is sponsored by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission for Teachers and Teaching, Ministry of Education. We are very glad to receive a very overwhelming response on this program. We have a good number of participants who have joined us. A little about the course, I'll take 2 minutes. The course is structured around a very interesting and conventional theme, which is sustainability strategies, perspectives from India. Now, this course is an attempt to gain insight into the risks and opportunities that are posed by various aspects pertaining to sustainability and the relevance that they hold for India. In this journey, we will be exploring and trying to understand how economic theories and the models can be rewired for long-term value and for resilience. We'll also explore new innovations and design economic strategies that are compatible with the larger goal of sustainability. Also, to have a deeper analysis of the issue at hand, the course is being divided into various sub-themes, such as economic development sustainability, the energy efficiency landscape of India, the renewable energy sector of India, and how it is linked to industries. We also have a sub theme, which is green GDP and global value chains in India, and link them to the larger world market. So these are all very rich topics to be discussed and understood. To enlighten us, we have a panel of eminent speakers and researchers who have a lot of expertise in their area of research. Today, I would most gladly like to welcome our keynote speaker for today, Ms. Lipika Roy. She is Deputy Director at Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Ms. Roy is presently handling the outcome budget of the ministry and a central sector scheme titled Environmental Information Systems, along with her other engagements with Niti Aayog and other ministries of the government. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. We are very glad that you accepted our invite. Okay, I would also like to welcome our principal, Professor S.P. Agarwal. He's always been a source of encouragement and strength for us in all the endeavors of our department. Thank you, sir, for being there. I will request you to please address the participants and invite Ms. Roy to deliver her lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjali. Good morning to all of you. First of all, welcome to our guest keynote speaker, Ms. Lipika Roy, who is not only a the expert in the field, but a practitioner, because she is working in Ministry of Environment and Forest, so she can really share her first-hand experience with the participants. My colleague from Economics Department, Dr. Anjali, Dr. Isha, and every other colleague who are with us, and all the participants, Pan-India, who have joined us for this program. Once again, I welcome you to this very, very important topic on sustainability studies perspective of India. Actually, if I say a few words about the college is a Delhi University maintained institution, and we offer about 16 honors courses, 3,000 students and 120 faculty members. Besides that, we are very active in R&D, research, consultancy. We have 10 centers of excellence, our own EDX portal, private cloud, and a NAC A grade college with the NIRF ranking 53. This program is organized under coveted scheme of Ministry of Education, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission for Teachers and Teaching. Actually, this is the vision of Pandit Madan Mohanji and the mission of great mathematician Ramanujan College, which we are taking it forward. Actually, our mission was when COVID started to reach everyone in the country, to reach the unreached and every nook and corner of the country. And you will be glad to know that we have trained 150,000 teachers all over the country on various topics, all kind of topics, contemporary research and subject base and everything which comes to our mind and to the mind of our collaborators and departments. Now, this is a very, very relevant and to the point topic on sustainability studies, because this is the talk of the town today. Well, I'm not an expert in the area, but I can share some of the views which I have on this topic. See, basically, we are looking for the growth in this country, economic growth, and everything is, measured in terms of that growth. Now we are a 3 trillion economy at present, a little less than 3 trillion, and we want to be a 5 trillion economy. So how can we achieve that through economic growth? But that growth, should be through sustainable development. See, if industries or factories are producing at the cost of the environment, at the cost of the public at large, at the cost of our water resources, at the cost of our air resources, so it is of no use. There is no point. And that's what we have been doing up till now. And this is the problem of most of the developing countries, rather up till now developed countries also. So we have to see that how, maintaining our environment, maintaining our resources, we can do the development. That is the key. So that is the discussion which will happen. See, the other day, I was attending a conference on climate change, and there it was basically on energy. And the main topic was to develop new energy resources besides the solar, wind, and other energies. So there was a talk on hydrogen energy. Now, hydrogen can be produced, as all of you know, that it is a component of water. There are 2 components in the water, H2O. Hydrogen can be, produced through water resources, which we have in abundance. Even ocean water can be used for that. But cost of production of hydrogen is very high up till now. So we are trying, some European countries and in collaboration with India are trying to reduce that cost. And if we can do that, I tell you, this can really, change the profile of the various countries, that we will not depend upon fossil fuels, because this is the problem today. Everywhere the crude oil is getting costlier and costlier, and our economy is dependent completely on that. And then by using that oil, we are spoiling the whole environment. So this is what we as youngsters, we as teachers also need to see. How can we do research in this direction in order to bring out energy efficient resources which do not spoil the environment. So this is the key. Another important aspect is, as I said, sustainable development, sustainable environment growth. And another thing which is a talk of the town is the inclusive growth, taking all these sections of the society. And here there is another point I would raise. See, not only that, giving equal opportunity to everyone, and removing the income inequalities. See, recently you must have seen in the data, in the television, I was one day, the news was there that 100 richest people in the country is holding 50% of the wealth of the country. Now, and you can see the lowest 50% is running on 5% of the wealth of the country. Now, this is what we need to look at. This is again against the concept of sustainable development or inclusive growth. See, how can we? I'm not saying that you just take out the wealth from the rich. That is not going to solve problem, because they are also creating value to the economy. They are generating employment. They are doing various good activities. So, but how can we handle this situation? This is the need of the discussion today, and I'm sure experts will look into it, because to my mind, if we can give education or health to everyone. Again, education and health means equal health and education. Let us say I'm getting a health facility, or if I'm getting an education, or my children are getting the education in the best schools, best colleges, but the poor person's children are not getting the best education or best health. So that is not a sustainable development. That is not a inclusive growth. So the governments and every society and NGOs and everyone has to work in this direction in order to bring the sustainable development. So this is which I feel, but you need to discuss and decide what is happening. Now, another important thing is that when we produce energy, let us say renewable energy, solar energy, wind energy, or hydrogen energy, we are again using the fossil fuels to produce that energy. So that is not going to resolve the problem. So first of all, the energy has to be produced from the green energy. That means we should use the solar energy in order to produce the hydrogen energy or wind energy. So this is what another important point we have to look into. And I was looking at the various topics. They are also talking about the food security, very important point, because during this COVID, for the last 2 years, the government of India is taking various steps to reach to every individual so that food security can be ensured. But I do not know how far it can be. So again, my point is, all academicians, researchers, young minds will need to look into this, how we can in this country grow at a faster rate, but taking care of the environment, taking care of our water resources, taking care of our air resources, taking care of our poorest of the poor and everyone in the country. And we can do the welfare of the society at large. So with this, once again, I welcome and thank you very much for inviting me and listening to me patiently. Over to Anjali.
Thank you, sir.
Let me invite Lipika ji to share her views on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those words of wisdom. Lipika ma'am, you can take over now and enlighten all the participants on the developments which are happening.
Right. Thank you. I think principals are covered quite a lot of the things that I was going to. At least he's touched upon the major grounds, and we are almost on the same page when it comes to it. So I thought that since today is the inaugural lecture and you have an extremely detailed course for the next 15 days panned out with experts from each area, I would be covering something which is cross-cutting to the entire workshop. And basically what is the road to sustainability with lessons from COVID that probably we can learn, because it is an important structural break in the history. So starting with that, I would really like to welcome all the participants. You are in for an extremely important and need of the hour workshop, and I hope that with almost more than 300 enlightened minds in this area, we would be welcoming some great research in the coming times, and you all get a lot of food for thought and some innovative ideas that you will carry forward with you after this workshop, and we would be getting some nice policy angles as well. So, like, starting with the sustainability, if we say, it is not something which is just the latest definition which came from the Brundtland Commission is that the meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Now, when we talk of sustainable development or sustainability, this is actually the first thing which just strikes, that as if this is something which was not existent before 1988. However, the concepts of sustainability in India has actually been, if we go back to the age of Mahabharata. So if we see, they have a shlok in Mahabharata which says, Pushpam pushpam vichinvita mula cheda nakarayet malakaram ivarame na yatha angakaraka. As in that the resource generation of an economy should be as it is done by a gardener, that he will pick up the flower or the fruit without uprooting the entire plant, rather than something like a charcoal maker who will uproot the plant, fell it, and burn down the forest for the production of charcoal. So it is actually from way back then that the concept of sustainability has been existing in the Indian cultural context. Even when we talk of economics, it has been as early as 1713 when Hans Karl von Karlowitz, who was a mining administrator, wrote a treaty about forestry called Silvicultura Okiomika, based on his own observations, because at that point in time in the 17th century, the problem was of increased industrial demand for wood to fuel the mining and the smelting industry, which had led to a complete deforestation in the area. And these kept on developing over the ages. However, the economic theory as we knew, as the national capital or the GDP, which we have now come to define, was basically something which started with the theories of the British economist Hicks, who has worked on consumption, who has defined that an individual income is the maximum amount of goods and services that an individual can consume without reducing the ability to maintain his real consumption in the future. However, this was later on questioned by Philip Lawn, who asked that what is the impact of this consumption on the environment, on the depletion of natural resources? Because the ability of a human being to consume needs to have something to consume itself. So if we will deplete everything that is giving us a production, what are we going to consume? So these led to the limits of growth by the Club of Rome in early 90s. Then eventually came the Brundtland Commission report of Our Common Future, which emphasizes the relevance of technological progress to economic growth. And this is something which is extremely important, because even after a century at this date today, we are standing at the same juncture, because we are talking of sustainability and sustainable development. So sustainable development in my eyes is the path to sustainability. Sustainability is basically the viability of this planet to carry on with itself all the life forms and the ecosystems and the natural resources that it has. So the sustainable development of the human race and the economies is nothing but the path to sustainability. So we should never equate the two. Now, when it comes to sustainable development, the question arises that how will technological progress affect economic growth? We all, most of you, I assume, are students of economics. We have studied growth theory, which goes on to say that technological progress boosts economic growth, and that is the way the economies have to grow. But however, this can be both ways. So if the technological progress affects the demand for the production factors, labor, capital, natural resources, without a proportionate increase in the productivity of the natural resources, this kind of a growth is imbalanced, as it leads to a greater consumption of natural resources and puts a greater demand on the absorption capacity of the environment. On the other hand, the path on which we desire to embark today is that an environmentally oriented technical advancements, which will lead to a decoupling of growth and the use of natural resource capital, or the use of nature as a cesspool. So besides technical innovation, the decoupling can further be expanded through social and institutional innovations. So currently there are 3 goals of sustainability as have been defined in the 2005 World Summit on Social Development, which are economic development, social development, and environmental protection. So these three together have become the three main facets of sustainable development, and they are known as the triple bottom line. Thereafter, in 2015, the United Nations came up with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which meant to ensure that no one is left behind in the success of our society. And the United Nations had declared this decade that we are living in from 2020 to 2030 as the decade of action to pursue the sustainable development by addressing these three pillars and trying to strike a balance amongst them. However, our beginning into this decade of action was overshadowed by the pandemic. And while we were at the doorstep of this new decade to achieve the SDGs collectively as one world and one humankind, this unexpected health crisis hit the world with fallout of overwhelming economic impact. Now, you may ask that why am I trying to link sustainable development with the pandemic? So in a business as usual scenario, it may be envisaged that the direct impact of the pandemic possibly would be in the shorter term. Whereas sustainable development, sustainability is something we always talk of with at least a decade or 50 year or 100-year period. So it's a long-term goal, something which we just aspired. However, the pandemic may potentially just delay the process of attaining these goals, but the paths to achieve these goals may not alter as much. However, I differ in that respect, as the unprecedented financial burden that has been imposed by the pandemic has resulted in slowdown of the socioeconomic processes and developments, which if it continues for a longer period, as we are in the third year, and I guess like all the undergraduate students of DU, even the COVID-19 pandemic is graduating this year. So this has resulted in the slowdown of unexpected socioeconomic developments, which in due course may affect the development priorities and pathways to achieve the SDGs, even on a decadal or a two-decadal scale. So this unforeseen crisis has exposed the fundamental weaknesses that we have in our various economic systems. It has the detrimental impact on the economic growth for primarily two factors. First, the exponential growth in the pandemic directly contributed to a lot of confusion and instability in the financial and capital markets. Secondly, the countries have regulated human movement and transport to monitor the growth of the epidemic, which has significantly affected the economic pressure on both the consumer and productive economic activity across the globe. The supply chains have been disrupted, and our interdependence on each other as a planet has come to a stall. So I feel the ongoing economic crisis has prompted us to rethink our conventional practices and rebuild a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive society. It means that it is perhaps, since this was to be the decade of action, nature is agreeing with the United Nations and it is trying to show us the need to maintain a symbiotic relationship with the nature. In fact, if we look at the data from 2020-21, so data from the CPCB, that is the Central Pollution Control Board, and the Uttar Pradesh Pollution Control Board shows that the Ganga's water along the most polluted stretch in Uttar Pradesh has been carrying more dissolved oxygen and less nitrates during the subsequent lockdowns. These are conducive for the survival of aquatic life. Similarly, if we talk of the groundwater reserves, if we see that otherwise, if we look at the data from Bangalore, they are chronically low groundwater reserves. However, owing to the lockdown period, there has been a substantial rise with the easing of the industrial and commercial activity in the area. In fact, even the municipal solid waste, that is the MSW generation, has considerably been reduced in all the industrial cities, even in Delhi and Mumbai. So the point is that even though the normal life has come to a standstill, the lockdown has given us a very rare opportunity to step back and assess our impact on the environment. It is as if we can see the counterfactual right in front of our eyes, that if we continue the way to be, this is the other one, the new normal that we need to come to. So it has shown the potential of human beings and the communities to quickly respond to crisis, collaborate and find the best solutions, and work with limited resources to mitigate the challenges. It has actually given us some signals as to how our new normal, our new growth trajectory, our new lifestyle and behavioral equations should be if we have to maintain this planet as a viable living option. So we can equate it that the planet with that of a human body. Just as there is a human being, we are working constantly. You eat an unhealthy food, you disturb the body's ecosystem, there are health and diseases, and therefore you decide to take a detox, or you go for a recovery course, take some medication, do some preventive activities so that you are recharged and back to where we are. Similarly, we can say that we have extracted enough natural resources from the earth, and dumping of the waste, we are polluting the natural systems, we are industrializing way beyond the carrying capacities. So we need to give the planet as well some time to recover, the ecosystems to re-evolve, the biodiversity to preserve itself again. So now I would come that when it comes to COVID-19 situation, there are very important lessons which we can take along with us on this new growth. Firstly is education. So this entire e-learning process is one of the best resources to reduce the carbon footprint in education. While I do not support that the schools and universities should be shut down and we should continue on the web ways itself, however, it has shown us one pathway to reach out to the students in different corners of the world in the acclimate weathers who were disconnected from the education system a priori. So this e-learning process and the digital platforms can actually take education to the ground level, to the poorest of the poor who live in the most inhabitable climates. And it has actually led to some very interesting schools. Like in Bangladesh, they have started something called a boat school, in which the teachers actually row because the country has a lot of incidents of floods, and because of that the children were missing out on the schools, being unable to go. So this boat school is an innovative concept that has been started. In fact, it has now been adopted in a few villages of the Sundarbans as well, where because of the flooding and because of the tiger attacks, a lot of the students in the difficult habitats are not able to attend school on a regular basis. So this is nothing but giving a sustainable access to education to a large populace, and we are not going to have a lost generation who do not have an access to education. Secondly, we come to NBS, which is nothing but nature-based solutions. So what are nature-based solutions? So IUCN, that's the International Union of Conservation of Nature, defines nature-based solutions as the actions to protect and restore natural or modified ecosystems that addresses societal challenges effectively and adaptively. So the challenges include climate change, water security, water pollution, food security, human health, disaster risk management, and many other options. So what will be a nature-based solution? For example, the restoration or the protection of mangroves along the coastline is a nature-based solution which accomplishes many things. For example, mangroves moderate the impact of waves and winds on the coastal settlements of cities, and they sequester carbon dioxide. Similarly, they also provide safe nurseries to marine life that can be the basis of sustaining populations of fish that the local populations depend on. Additionally, the mangrove forests can help control coastal erosion resulting from the rise in the sea level. So just the plantation of mangroves along the coastal line is actually helping you to address a lot of ecological concerns, sustain lifestyles and communities as well. Another example in the urban areas can be the green roofs or walls. These are nature-based solutions that can be used to moderate the impact of high temperatures, capture storm water, abate pollution, and even act as carbon sinks while enhancing biodiversity. Similarly, large hotels and resorts can effectively pioneer such solutions as an artificial wetland for water recycling, which would add to the local landscape's aesthetics as well. So these are some nature-based solutions which would help us in addressing ecological as well as sustainable lifestyle concerns. Third is the use of biocomposites. So biocomposites are actually an exciting new solution to the ever-increasing demand for industrial raw materials. So these are structures which are naturally occurring minerals woven together into a matrix of natural fibers like cellulose or lignin. So due to their strength, lower weight, and recyclability, biocomposite products are being used as an environmentally superior alternatives to traditional materials like wood and plastic. So for instance, the starch-based clay nanocomposites can be a possible alternative to food packaging, which can lead to elimination of a lot of single-use plastics. Next, this brings us to the effective waste management. So we find that in general in cities like Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, and other areas, the municipal solid waste management is actually an issue, and we have huge dump sites just for the garbage and the sewage, which are not even segregated at times. So we need, and especially the handling of biomedical waste is extremely crucial in the light of COVID pandemic, because now we have a lot of biomedical waste in the hospitals. We find the single-use masks and gloves just discarded because people have been running that we need to have a double mask, triple mask, and the absolute disposal of these biomedical wastes is actually a very big hazard that we might just enter into if it is not checked at the very brink. So it is necessary that we educate the people right from the beginning. So like even in our ministry, we have a central sector scheme on hazardous waste management. Similarly, we have a scheme on the EEAT, which is Environmental Education, Awareness and Training, which is facilitating more than 1 lakh eco clubs across the country, wherein right from the beginning, we are able to reach out to people and through the various outreach activities and teach them that how we may segregate the household level waste segregation across urban, peri-urban and rural areas as a mandatory first step. Then source segregated solid waste, that is biocomposted or urban composting based on the recycling methods, would be a very cost effective means of generating organic manure and megawatts of bioenergy as well. So this not only brings us to another source of renewable energy, but also achieves the twin objective of making our cities cleaner, Swachh Bharat, Swasth Bharat. Similarly, for the heavy water industries of pharmaceuticals, paper, food and beverage, and best practices in minimizing the water consumption will lead towards a zero liquid discharge. Next, we come to something called natural infrastructure. So what do we mean by natural infrastructure? Whenever we talk of infrastructure, it generally comes the concrete cities, the flyovers, buildings, and everything which we have begun to associate with what we mean as infrastructure. However, a natural infrastructure is basically a strategically planned and managed network of natural lands, such as a forest, wetland, a working landscape, or other open spaces that enhances the ecosystem values and functions and provides associated benefits to the human population. So these can basically, an example of a natural infrastructure would be the concept of a biosphere reserves, which incorporates the core protected area for nature conservation and buffer zones and transition areas where the people live and work in a sustainable way. So one of our schemes, which is biodiversity conservation, is actually working on the preservation of these biosphere reserves, and these are very viable and upcoming tourist alternatives as well. Next, and one of the very important lessons that we need to inculcate in our future growth trajectory is to build the resilience of the most vulnerable. As we all have seen during the pandemic, it is actually the gig workers of the economy, the informal sector, who have absolutely no sort of resilience in terms of insurance or social security benefits. And this wide displacement of the and migration of the labor has been an extremely unprecedented and historical move owing to this pandemic, in which we were stuck in our homes just watching abysmally the mass of humans from one state to the other, unable to reach their home state, walking for days without food, without employment. So this population is extremely vulnerable to economic shocks, and they need greater access to safety nets. So one of the important in way of assurance is the agricultural crop assurance, which the basic risk that is faced by a majority, the entire primary sector of the economy, is that of crop failure owing to bad monsoons. So the climate risk insurance is a very important tool for providing security against the loss of livelihoods and assets as a consequences of the disaster. Now, crop assurance is one of the necessities to mitigate the risks associated with the majority of the farmers. However, it is extremely challenging in the Indian sector, and the reason being that there are a large number of small and scattered landholdings, varying climatic soil conditions, lack of basic data on agriculture, and other things. However, we have seen that some of the states, for example, Karnataka, they have a state natural disaster monitoring centers, Varun Mitra, which is an app which is benefiting more than 5 lakh farmers through its weather advisories, and it also provides data to the insurers at the panchayat scale to improve the payout to farmers. So these are some of the models which we need to replicate in the other states as well, so that we can reach out to the most vulnerable sections of our society and get them in the fold of some sort of a security benefit. In fact, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, Manrega, has been launched in 2006. However, it has actually been in the first half of 2021 that it has been used by more than 86 million people. This has been the highest ever utilization of the scheme since its launch in 2006. And the rural ecosystem of employment got some sort of a buffer from this. So the movement of labor between the urban and rural India has never been a homogeneous concept, something which the pandemic has very glaringly displayed to us. So some governments like the Odisha government, the Jharkhand and Himachal Pradesh have decided to bring the employment guarantee scheme in the urban areas of their states as well. So this kind of a support between the central employment guarantee scheme and the states can also create a stable national labor situation across the country. And we can also be used for creating environment friendly green spaces, augmenting the existing central government endeavors like the smart cities mission. Next, we come to another aspect. One is the rural labor. The other is that how we may make our primary sector. We see that the growth rates that the economy has been progressing is actually pulled across by the secondary and the tertiary sectors, whereas our primary sector, the agricultural sector, is actually facing a slowdown, and it is getting exacerbated by the climate change effects. So we need to come up with methods for sustainable agricultural practices. So now these may include mulching, which is basically just providing a protective layer of material on top of the soil, which can be organic, like grass clippings, straw, stone mulching, etc. So this provides a better growing environment for our crops, and it reduces crop failure. Similarly, zero tillage is where the crop is sown without drillers, without prior land preparation. So this reduces the cost of cultivation. And then agroecology, organic farming, intensive agricultural practices like pasture cropping, agroforestry, intercropping are many ways in which we can make our agricultural sector sustainable, especially organic farming. Now, Sikkim is one of the states in India which is completely organic farming based now. So this helps to maintain the biological diversity, the long-term soil fertility, recycle the materials and processes, and relying on the renewable resources as well. And In fact, and we see that especially in the urban areas, hydroponics, aeroponics, and aquaponics is one of the major ways to increase the green cover across the city. And we find that it is actually being done in Delhi with many of the flyovers. We find the little plants. So that is one of the ways which is not only sustainable, I wouldn't say agriculture per se, sustainable greenery, whereas it is also providing a green cover to the cities. Next, we come to another important aspect, which is the energy. So now energy, we already know that India has made a lot of commitments towards its shift from non-renewable to sources of renewable energy. And we have been making great advancements in the solar energy as well as the wind energy. However, along with that, we also need to bring about a behavioral aspect into the energy consumption and energy efficiency of the country. For example, remote working. So this entire electricity saving that has been there because of the pandemic, because of less mobility, usability of the vehicles is something which has saved a lot of energy, reduced the air pollution. And on the other hand, it is a new concept for the countries socially, culturally to develop. In fact, like it just from a health angle as well, there is working from home, contact free services, reduced travel, which is showing that we can operate under a low carbon green model. In fact, for the first time in world history, there was a virtual G20 summit. In fact, even the webinar that we are having, we're all sitting in the comforts of our homes and offices and still connected for a cause without traveling to a place and increasing the carbon footprint. So this kind of a behavioral change in our daily practices like carpooling, etc., will also help in a long way. This reduces the fuel, paper, travel wastage, etc., and enhances the greater access to resources. In addition, of course, the other policies of the government, like the ethanol blended petrol program throughout the country, is also one of the many ways in which the energy matter is being tackled. Similarly, the energy efficiency in which shows the appliances as to how energy efficient they are. And there are various standards by the Bureau of Indian Standards towards electric vehicles, the fridges and other appliances which have a lesser amount of CFCs. So those standards that are being used by the industries should be promoted even more. Now, next we come to an important concept of the supply chains and circular economy. So we found that in the pandemic period, the entire supply chain of the country collapsed. There was lack of access to even basic necessities, and that created a practice of hoarding and black marketing and a lot of distress to consumers in many cities across the country. So this needs this kind of a supply chain. And we also find that because there was a stop in the imports and exports and the international trade during this pandemic, our importance on the rest of the world when it comes to our basic essentials has been bared now. So we need to now start focusing on a supply chain which makes us self-reliant, which is based on the inputs from our own country. We may source locally, so that this kind of a supply chain does not break down in any of the future activities. So the Indian government has actually announced an economic stimulus of 1.7 trillion and is exploring a bailout for the MSMEs, which is one of the major steps. So we need to strengthen our micro, small and medium enterprises, link them to the industries so that we may have a circular economy as well, which will help us in providing cleaner technologies, fuel efficiency, as well as maintaining the supply chain. So as the availability and production of many essential items such as food, grocery, pharmaceutical products are drastically reduced, there is a huge mismatch between the supply and demand. In the meanwhile, the pandemic is also having a positive impact on the environmental side of production due to the shutdown of many manufacturing units and reductions in the logistics and distribution operations. So this supply chain network, we need to see that we can actually get examples from some of the industries like General Motors and Ford Motors. They actually turned their production system to support the need of the society in terms of manufacturing by shifting to manufacturing ventilators. So this kind of a flexible manufacturing system is something which we may explore in order to fulfill the requirements of necessity items. Then there is a need to digitize our supply networks and establish distribution centers and warehouses in different nooks and corners of the country, so that in case of an pandemic or any other sort of an exigency, the manufacturing network strategy will always have an alternate sourcing options for the raw materials, suppliers, and logistics providers for mitigating such disruptions. Now, circular economy basically is promoting reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling of the existing materials and products, as well as better eco design of the products that will allow for their durability, repairability, recyclability, and waste prevention and life cycle. In fact, now the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is also on the way to open a Bureau of Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy in order to have some important policy directions in this angle. Because it is a unique opportunity that has been provided to us to now look at business models from the angle of resource efficiency as well. In fact, the entire process of vocal for local, as has been propagated by our Prime Minister, is one of the major steps in this, as it serves the twin procedure that we are not exactly rejecting globalization, but we are calling from a new form of it. Now, self-reliance should be the new vision for India, as it has helped. We need to understand that it has actually been our local supply network whom we had been perhaps ignoring because of the multinational giants who have come to our rescue at the time of this precarious pandemic. So we need to actually recenter our supply processes towards the local suppliers and producers. And by improving our local manufacturing and the productive efficiency, we can compete with the world as well as help the world. Similarly, this is an extremely new option and with immense potential for the creation of more jobs. So scarcity is the mother of invention. Similarly, when jobs are hard to come by, it is important to adapt to the crisis by creating new jobs through the innovative methods. This could mean setting up your own business, an online marketplace, or just connecting the local shop to the places like Swiggy, Instamart, etc., in which they are connected with the rest of the supply system in the entire state, district, and as we go further down the granularity, which will help us maintain the supply demand balance at all levels. Next, we need to respect the indigenous and the local level traditional knowledge that our country is replete with. As I already started with the shlok of Mahabharata, and there has actually, if we look at this yug, there is an entire chapter on the Bhumi Sukta in the Atharvaveda, which is talking about sustainability and how the planet is the jewel crest, and we are humans are greedy beings who are just taking up and from that. So we need to see that our country is an extremely culturally rich country since ages, and we have in our ancient traditional knowledge a culture of sustainability. And some of those can be seen in like the Vishnoi community in Rajasthan, or our yoga and Ayurveda, which have actually helped us with a thorough handholding throughout this entire pandemic. So sustainable and environmentally practices and psyche still continues to be a part of the lifestyle and culture across many of the rural communities in India, and which constitute almost 75% of the population. They live close to nature and have a simple and frugal lifestyle. So while we are aiming at connecting the supply demand network from an economic angle, we must also look at the cons of it and not let go of our traditional knowledge that is inbuilt, which has made the country resilient and help us overcome in the time of duress that was there in terms of the pandemic. In fact, GreenDex is an international report on sustainable living, and the study compiled by National Geographic and GlobeScan, it measures the way the consumers are responding to international concerns. So the scores measure housing, transport, food and goods, and India has actually received a very high score in that. Now, we may see that while the entire world was grappling with COVID-19 itself, there were many unfortunate countries who had to deal with the physical and ecological impacts of climate change simultaneously, like the cyclone Amphan in Bangladesh or the typhoon Wongfong in the Philippines. So it requires us that while we may embark on a newer growth trajectory, we need to see that what are the mitigation and adaptation actions and their progress to tackle climate change simultaneously. So in that, currently the ministry has a National Action Plan on Climate Change, NAPCC, which was launched in 2008. It has 8 national missions which are focusing on advancing the country's climate change related objectives of adaptations. Now, these are basically the National Solar Mission, which has a target to achieve 100 gigawatt of solar power in the 7 years starting from 2014-15. The next is the National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, NMEEE, which looks after or which has an aim to achieve the growth with ecological sustainability, financing the public-private projects to reduce energy consumption through demand-side management programs, energy incentives, including some of the PAT scheme is one of the initiatives under the NMEEE, which has been initiated by the government. Now, the third mission under NAPCC is the National Mission for Green India, which is one of the centrally sponsored schemes of the ministry as well, in which the entire afforestation program of the country is we are trying to improve the ecosystem services by increasing the forest cover and the quality of forest cover as well. Then there is the National Mission on Sustainable Habitats, then the National Water Mission, National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, National Mission for Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystems, and the National Mission for Strategic Knowledge in Climate Change. In addition to that, there has been a revised target of the grid-connected solar projects from 20,000 megawatt by the year 21-22 to 1 lakh megawatts by the year 21-22 under the National Solar Mission. Other than that as well, like as I was talking about one of our centrally sponsored schemes, the National Mission for Green India, it was introduced with the aim to protect, restore and enhance India's forest cover. It takes a holistic view on greening and focuses on multiple ecosystem services like carbon sequestration and emissions reductions, which are just positive externalities, as we may say. So this was started with an objective to increase the forest cover, not just to increase the land under reforestation, but however, we must move towards from shallow forests to dense forests, which are able to hold a lot of ecosystem and biodiversity within it. In addition to that, we also have a central sector scheme, which is the Climate Change Action Plan, which was approved in January 2014 to build and support the scientific and analytical capacity for assessment of climate change in the country. So two important components of the CCAP are the National Carbonaceous Aerosol Program and the long-term ecological observations. So the government is implementing a faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles in India, which is basically abbreviated to FAME India, and the Bureau of Indian Standards has also come out with some standards on EVs, and the government has actually made a procurement of a lot of electrical vehicles as well. Next, we come to the finance part. So while we may say that it is all very fancy that we are talking of a growth trajectory and all of it, nothing comes free. As we are economists, we know that there is no such thing as a free lunch. So how are we aligning the finance with the sustainability? So with respect to that, we see that there has been an augmenting finance for sustainable development. So the National Voluntary Guidelines for Responsible Financing was finalized in 2014. In addition, in 15, the RBI included lending to social infrastructure and small renewable energy projects within the priority sector targets. Then there is the Voluntary Guidelines on Corporate Social Responsibility, which was issued in 2009 to upstream the concept of business responsibility. So these guidelines were developed based on the India's socio-economic cultural context, as well as the global best practices, including the UN guidelines, guiding principles on businesses, and the revised guidelines have been released as the NGRBC, which is the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, in March 2019. So it has been designed to assess our businesses to embrace the principles of responsible conduct. In fact, some of the businesses such as CMNs, ITC, then L&T have actually shown a path-breaking progress, like the entire Mumbai train has been running on an energy-efficient system produced by the CMNs. Similarly, the e-Chopal of the ITC program has actually helped so many farmers and local suppliers across the country to be part of the entire production process, along with a resilient infrastructure and insurance. So this ITC e-Chopal has actually been an extremely successful and sustainable way of carrying out business. Then in order to reflect the NGRBC principles, and other than that, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, through its listing regulations in 2012, mandated the top 100 listed entities by market capitalization to disclose their performance against the NVGs using a business responsibility report format from an environmental, social, and governance perspective. So just ESG concept has really taken traction in the recent ways, and many of the rating agencies are also now rating businesses based on the ESG, which I believe in the long run, which is my personal belief, would also help the sustainable finances to attract more capital from various fields. Going beyond the innovative sustainability themed capital models like the green bonds and social impact bonds, while they are at the very nascent stage, but currently there is a sustainable finance working group, and we are trying to develop, and like even for the forthcoming sessions, we may see a greater use of sustainable climate finance in India. Next, we come to the concept of green skilling, which is an extremely important part of our trajectory, that if we want to look at any kind of a target, whether it is a net zero emission by 2070 or in reducing our carbon footprint, nothing in an sustainable framework or environmental framework happens in silos. So environment is a public good, and it is something which cannot heal itself in isolation. So when we talk of any target that we are saying in terms of a multilateral agreement or any other commitment, it is something which is cross-cutting across the centers. So if we want to achieve a net zero emission, it is not something that just by reducing air pollution, we can do that. It will require a well thought out change across our industrial structures, across our consumption patterns, in our day-to-day lifestyles, how our businesses are being conducting and sourcing the materials. So it is something which is cross-cutting across various sectors of the economy, and together they all complement each other. And as I say, that complement each other, which have a bearing, and eventually we may move towards a target. As I said earlier, that sustainable development is nothing but a path towards sustainability. So in this light, green skilling is of extreme importance. So we need to see that there is a report by ILO which says that there is a requirement of more than 6 lakh jobs in India in various green sectors, whether it be waste management or energy and solar panels, etc. And in fact, in that, I would like to bring in that the scheme that I am handling currently in the ministry, which is the Environmental Information System, has a concept called the Green Skill Development Program, in which was basically targeted towards the dropouts or just school pass students, and to give them some sort of a vocational training in the green and sustainable sectors, so that their observations and their traditional knowledge can be used, which has thereafter gradually, on the basis of the success of the pilot in 2017-18, expanded to various other sectors, to in which we have students and participants who are BSc graduates as well. So currently there are 25 such courses that we are running through our centers, 60 centers, which are placed all across the country, and who are carrying out these green skill development courses across. And these courses range from a large variety, one being waste management, then assessment of cleaner production, which is an important thing for our industries to take note in the futures, then the making of solar panels and that, ETP, STP operations, then some of the local ones like the propagation of bamboo crafts and other non-timber forest products of plant origin, like bamboo crafts, then making of lantana furniture, which is actually a weed which people just grow and the forest officials throw them out. So from that weed, we are teaching the tribal population that how it can be consumed in a way, and how they can make furniture. And in fact, one of our centers based in Coimbatore, they have actually opened a platform on Amazon in which they are selling all these lantana furnitures. So this is not only helping us on a process of sustainability, but giving a sustainable livelihood to a large part of the country as well. And other than that, there are of course non-timber forest products of animal origin as well, in which like honey, wild honey beekeeping, and others are courses that we are running. So we find that if we involve more and more the population towards the green and the sustainably skilled workforce, this is a major requirement if we want to move towards the green economy and green country in the next ways. And for that, another important thing, which is that we all need to change our behaviors and opinions and mindsets, that just as I said, that environment is a public good, so we as public need to chip in as well in whatever little way we can, from segregating our waste to switching off the lights on time, to saving water, not burning crackers, not creating garbage. So that sort of an environmentally conscious and aware lifestyle and thought process needs to be inculcated in each and every one of us and in the coming generations. So whether that can be achieved through some or the other outreach and outcome program of the government, or through our handholding with civil society and NGOs, is something which is the need of the hour, because we have only one planet. There is no planet B that we can just migrate to. And so again, I would like to end with a shlok from the Atharva Veda, which says that Vasundhara Manushyam Ekameva Sukhasthalam Tasya Sangrakshanam Karya Nramanera Gauravat, which says that the earth is the only place where we can live and flourish. So it is mankind's duty and obligation to protect and cherish the planet. So we may say that, if I have to become a little literary, that as we had Milton, who had said that, who had composed Paradise Lost, so a lot of our environmental systems probably has been lost in the development process. But just as he also composed Paradise Regained, we have a long way, and through the sustainable measures that we have come, we may also regain our planet, revitalize it, come up with sustainable solutions, and take not only our country, but the entire globe on a much more sustainable trajectory in the coming future. Thank you, and I wish all the participants best of luck for the upcoming workshop, and everything that I have just probably touched in brief, you would be having detailed technical sessions on each of them, and you could link them to probably what was there in the inaugural session. And if something comes out of it, I would be one of the happiest people. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Lipika Ram. I hope I'm audible, and
Yes, you're audible.
thank you for such an enlightened lecture, and touching all the aspects of sustainability, and also giving us what the ministry is thinking about the sustainability strategies and the policy stance. We have a discussion session which is now open for everybody. All the participants are requested to put their queries on the chat column in the YouTube live session. I can see one question which has come from Mr. Santosh, and he is asking what is the difference between weak sustainability and strong sustainability?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me, ma'am? Hello.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Could you please repeat the question?
I'll repeat the question. The question is as follows. What is the difference between weak sustainability and strong sustainability?
Okay, so basically, weak and strong sustainability is something which is characterized when we come to the different kinds of capital, the human capital, natural capital, etc. So weak sustainability is something when there is a non-declining stock of capital, and it assumes that man-made capital can be replaced with the natural capital. Strong sustainability, on the other hand, implies that natural capital cannot be replaced by any other capital, and therefore our entire focus should be on preserving the natural resources that we already have.
Right. Okay, thank you. So I think there will be more questions coming in. Before that, I had a query while you were presenting the thing. Also, I would request the other colleagues who have joined us in the meeting can also pose their questions. They can just unmute themselves and get in touch with the meeting and ask their query. So I'll go about asking first. So it's very interesting to hear the policy stance of the ministry. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has been involved in all kind of climate mitigation and adaptation policies right from 2015 onwards, as far as I can understand, I can think of it. I was thinking when there is this pressed need now to take a great leap forward as far as climate change is concerned, I was interested to know what is the policy stance of the ministry as far as dirty industries are concerned? Is it the ministry planning to relocate them, or is the transformation is in process, especially from the point of view of the plastic packaging industry, which is contributing immensely to the waste which is getting accumulated on the planet? What are your insights into that, ma'am?
See, actually, I do not deal directly with the division concerned. So we in the ministry have a hazardous waste management division, which comes up with the rules, for example, with the disposal of the hazardous waste, which are coming from the ministries. And other than that, there is, of course, the clearance process of the ministry as well. So all of these are taken and built into account when the clearance to an industry is given. And also the HSM division of our ministry comes up with a regular rules and guidelines which the industries are supposed to follow when it comes to the waste management and other hazardous material and effluents that are coming from there. So all the industries under that are catered to under the HSM scheme.
Okay, that's nice. That ministry has a system of keeping these accountabilities on. That's very nice. I have another question which is coming up. Again, this is Mr. Santosh Singh asking, sustainability may be defined as minimizing the negative footprint of human life. Is that so? That's the question. Can I repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Sustainability may be defined as minimizing the negative footprint of human life. Question mark. I think he means to ask, is the statement right? That
Okay. So
sustainability
is one of the aspects of sustainability, I would say, that sustainable, like of course, among all the species that live harmoniously across on the planet, the human ones are the most notorious, and we are the ones who have been causing the greatest damage to the planet. So while of course we need to mitigate the damage that we have already done and go on a development path that requires us to focus on that, so this removing the negative footprint is something just which is focusing on the remedial measures, whereas sustainability in general is also something which is talking of the innovations and the way we can prevent further damage and also help in the healing and revitalization of the planet and its natural resources and ecosystems as well. So mitigation is just half of it, that we need to cure, but we also need to prevent.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So there's another. I'll just go on with the questions. This is Chitra Ragis who's asked. She's asking, in the name of sustainability, there are a lot of organic products being promoted. A few are fake in nature. How do you control it? How do you control the fakeness of the products which are being floated in the market in the name of organic products?
So
Is
I
there a
think in that we need to be informed consumers while making these consumption choices. So we must see whether it has been approved by FSSAI or the concerned accreditation agency, that whether it is completely organic in nature or not. So currently most of the products have a QR code which you can scan and see what has been the actual process like, and whether it has been approved by organic at all by the concerned standardization agency. So if we do take that much effort and making an informed choice as a consumer, we can probably help to resolve this problem a lot.
Okay, so we'll take a couple of few other questions also. There are a lot of them flowing in. I'll just see.
Time for just 2 or 3 more, actually.
Okay, great. I'll just pick up. I think I don't know the level of relevance to the thing, but I think I'll pick up another question here, which says that, ma'am, are we having any national ESG ranking for Indian companies?
Okay, so it has actually been that SEBI is examining the disclosure of ESG related aspects in the rating press release by the credit rating agency. So it is done by a lot of the international credit rating agencies like the Moody's and all. They do it. However, from the Indian government exactly, I don't think so. I'll have to check.
Okay, we'll just take last question here, given the time constraint. It says, this is one question coming in. Do you think that green technology also being produced at the cost of damaging our planet? So is the green technology not compatible with the resources on the planet? I think that's what the participant seems to ask. Should I repeat the question?
Yeah, I don't see that in the chat box actually.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just repeating the question. Do you think that green technology also being produced at the cost of damaging our planet?
Okay, so we need to see that exactly how you are defining green technology. There are various aspects. So there is an entire taxonomy of economic activities which can label an economic activity as green or brown or red owing to the amount of disruptions that it is causing. So we need to see exactly where this technology is fitting in that taxonomy and how exactly it is being classified as green. So there are various indicators when it comes to labeling of an economic activity as a green or a brown or a red activity. So based on that, we would be able to decide whether the technology is actually green or not.
Okay, great. So do we have time for another question, or we can continue with the discussion session, and probably Lipika ma'am, you can, if you find time over the day, you can just type few answers for our participants. That would be
Yeah,
great.
sure. If you could mail me the questions, I would get back with some satisfactory answers.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll do that. Participants, I request you to keep on posing your questions on the chat box. What we'll do is we'll send them through to Lipika ma'am, and probably we'll get a question, your question answered by her, and then they will forward it to all of you. Thank you so much, Lipika ma'am, for joining us and giving us the insights of what the government has as in the policy stance with respect to creating a sustainable economy for ourselves and leaving something for the next generation to cherish. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, bye.
So it's been a rich discussion, and I will request all the participants to please fill in the feedbacks form, which will be uploaded for this particular session. Also, there will be the quiz and assignment, which will be uploaded on the RC MOOCs platform. You are all aware of the marking scheme. At least 50% of the scoring is required for gaining the certificate. So please go about answering the question answer and the quiz so that it facilitates the program further. Thank you so much. So Ashish sir, are we still live, or what is the process now? Ashish sir?
Yes, ma'am, we are live still.
Okay, so I think the session is over.
Okay. Ravi sir, who has joined as a admin Ramanujan, who is host? Ravinder sir. Just a minute, give me within 2 seconds. I'm doing.
So Ashish sir, we are leaving the meeting now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely, you can. You can, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll talk. Yeah. Okay. Okay.